Rain hammered against the cargo bay doors as freight handler Owen Briggs sorted through salvage from the asteroid mines. Between crates of worthless rock, his scanner detected something alive. Owen wiped the sweat from his forehead and stared at the readout. The device never lied. Somewhere in this pile of debris, something had a heartbeat. He dug through broken machinery and shattered containers until his gloved hands touched something warm. In the cold vacuum of space, nothing should feel warm. Nothing dead, anyway. The egg was massive, nearly 3 feet tall, with a shell that shimmered like oil on water. Dark purple faded to deep blue, colors that seemed to move beneath the surface. Owen pulled off his glove and touched it with bare skin. Heat pulsed against his palm, slow and steady like a sleeping giant. "Briggs, you find anything valuable in that junk?" The voice crackled through his helmet radio. Marcus Chun, the shift supervisor, always wanted to know about profits before safety. Owen hesitated. His scanner showed a living creature inside the egg, but he had no idea what kind. The mining crews pulled strange things from deep space all the time. Most of it ended up in corporate labs, cut apart and studied until nothing remained but data files and specimen jars. Just rocks and broken equipment. Owen lied. Nothing worth reporting. He waited until the shift ended before moving the egg to his personal locker. The thing barely fit. Owen wrapped it in thermal blankets and locked the door, his heart pounding harder than it should. He had just stolen company property, probably very expensive company property. That night, Owen couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the heartbeat, slow and trusting beneath his hand. He pulled up research files on his tablet, searching for anything that matched the egg's description. Most databases showed common species, things already cataloged and understood. Nothing looked even close to what he had found out. Dr. Lynn Hayes worked in the science division, 3 levels down from the cargo base. Owen had met her twice, both times in the station cafeteria. She seemed different from the other corporate scientists. She actually cared about the creatures she studied, talked about them like they were people instead of experiments. Owen found her in the lab at 0600 hours, running tests on mineral samples. She looked up when he entered, surprised to see a cargo worker in the science wing. "I need your help," Owen said, "and I need you not to report this to anyone." Lynn set down her tools and listened while Owen explained. When he showed her the scanner readings, her eyes went wide. She grabbed her equipment bag without another word and followed him back to the cargo level. The egg had grown warmer overnight. Lynn ran every test she could without damaging the shell. Her hand shook as she read the results. "This is a Draconar egg," she whispered. "Do you understand what that means?" The Draconar have been extinct for 300 years. The collective hunted every last one of them down and killed them. This should not exist. Owen felt cold despite the egg's warmth. Why would they hunt an entire species? Because the Draconar were powerful. They could bond with other beings, share thoughts and emotions. The collective wanted to use them as weapons in the war against the frontier colonies. When the Draconar refused, the collective decided that if they couldn't control them, no one would have them. Lynn touched the egg gently. Someone hid this, kept it safe for centuries, hoping it would survive. "The company will want it," Owen said. "They'll crack it open, study whatever's inside. They will kill it," Lynn corrected. "The collective still has laws against Draconar. Even an egg counts as contraband. They'll destroy it to avoid legal problems." Owen looked at the egg, thinking about the heartbeat he had felt. Somewhere inside that shell, something innocent was growing, unaware that the entire galaxy considered its species too dangerous to exist. The choice should have been difficult. His job, his life on the station, everything he had built over 10 years of work balanced against a creature he had never seen. But the choice felt easy. "Help me get it off the station," Owen said. "I'll take it somewhere safe." Lynn studied his face for a long moment, then nodded. "There's a supply shuttle leaving for the outer colonies tomorrow. I can get you on the manifest as a research assistant. We'll hide the egg in equipment crates." They worked through the night, carefully packing the egg in temperature-controlled containers. Lynn forged documents and transfer orders, her fingers flying across the computer keys. Owen gathered his personal belongings, everything he could carry in 2 bags. He was leaving behind a decade of his life, and he felt lighter than he had in years. The shuttle departed at dawn. Owen sat in the cargo hold, surrounded by crates and machinery, with one hand resting on the container that held the egg. Through the metal, he could feel the warmth, the steady pulse of life. Halfway to the outer colonies, the scanner in his pocket beeped. Owen pulled it out and checked the reading. The heartbeat had changed, faster now, stronger. The egg was preparing to hatch. Lynn appeared in the cargo hold doorway, her face pale. "We have a problem. Commander Ralt from Collective Security just boarded the station. He's asking about missing biological specimens. Someone must have noticed the scanner readings before you moved it." Owen felt his stomach drop. How long before he figures out we took it? Hours, maybe less. He's already checking departure logs. Lynn sat down beside the egg container. "Owen, if they catch us with this, we'll both end up in prison. You could still turn back. Say I forced you to help me. Save yourself." Owen shook his head. That thing in there didn't ask to be born into a galaxy that wants it dead. Someone needs to give it a chance. The egg shifted inside its container, a soft scraping sound like claws testing the shell from within. Owen and Lynn looked at each other, both understanding what was about to happen. They were about to meet the last of the Draconar. The egg split open in the middle of the night. Owen woke to find a creature the size of a large dog staring at him with eyes like molten gold. Scales covered the dragon's body, deep purple that caught the dim lights of the cargo hold and reflected them back like a night sky full of stars. Small wings, still wet from the egg, pressed tight against its sides. The creature chirped, a sound that reminded Owen of birds from Earth. Nothing like the roar he expected from a dragon. Owen sat up slowly, not wanting to scare it. The dragon tilted its head, watching him with an intelligence that made Owen's breath catch. This was not an animal. This was a person, newly born and vulnerable, but definitely a person. "Hey there," Owen whispered. "You're safe. I promise." The dragon stepped forward on unsteady legs and pressed its nose against Owen's hand. Warmth flooded through him, not from the touch, but from somewhere deeper. Emotions that were not his own filled his mind. Hunger, fear, confusion, and underneath it all, a desperate need for connection. Lynn appeared at the doorway, drawn by the noise. She froze when she saw the dragon, tears streaming down her face. "It's beautiful," she breathed. The dragon turned toward Lynn's voice, and Owen felt its fear spike. His own protective instinct surged in response, and suddenly he was standing between Lynn and the creature, his body moving before his mind could catch up. "It bonded with you," Lynn said softly. "The Draconar bond with the first being they see when they hatch. It's an evolutionary trait. Ensures they have a protector while they're vulnerable. That dragon thinks you're its family now." Owen looked back at the dragon, at those golden eyes watching him with complete trust. "What do I feed it?" "Protein, lots of it. And it will need water." Lynn pulled out her tablet. "I'll compile everything I know about Draconar care. Owen, this bond is permanent. You're connected to it for life now. You'll feel what it feels. Eventually, you might even be able to communicate directly." The dragon chirped again, louder this time. Owen felt the hunger growing stronger. He found processed meat rations in the supply cabinet and offered one to the dragon. It sniffed carefully before taking the food, eating with surprising delicacy for a creature with claws that could shred metal. "We need to name her," Lynn said. She had been running scans while the dragon ate. "She's female, and she's growing fast. She'll be twice this size by tomorrow." Owen thought about complex names, traditional names, names that sounded impressive. Then he looked at the dragon, at the simple trust in her eyes, and said, "Nira. Her name is Nira." The dragon, Nira, looked up at the sound. Owen felt a pulse of recognition through their bond. She knew her name. She knew him 3 days into their journey to the outer colonies. Everything went wrong. The shuttle's communications system lit up with an incoming transmission. Commander Ralt's face appeared on the screen, stern and unyielding. "This is Collective Security. You are harboring illegal biological contraband. Cut your engines and prepare to be boarded." The shuttle pilot, a grizzled woman named Santos, looked back at Owen and Lynn. "What did you two do?" Owen stepped forward. We save something that deserves to live. Can you outrun them? Santos checked her instruments. Their ship is faster, better armed. We won't make it to the colony borders before they catch us. Nira had grown larger, now the size of a small vehicle. She pressed against Owen's side, sensing his fear through their bond. He felt her response, a fierce protective anger that startled him with its intensity. Nira might be young, but she was far from helpless. The collective ship fired a warning shot across their bow. Santos cursed and started to slow the engines. Owen made a decision that probably qualified as insanity. Keep flying, he told Santos. Get us as close to the colony border as possible. They will shoot us down, Santos said. No, Lynn interrupted, understanding what Owen was planning. They won't risk destroying the dragon. They want it intact for study. The collective ship moved closer, preparing to dock and board them by force. Owen opened the cargo bay doors, feeling the rush of recycled air as the pressure equalized. Nira stepped to the edge, wings spread wide. Can you fly? Owen asked, not sure if she could understand him. Through their bond came a feeling of certainty. Nira had never flown before, but she knew how. Instinct written into her genes, memories passed down from her ancestors. She looked back at Owen one more time, then jumped. The collective ship's weapons tracked her movement, but no one fired. They watched in shock as Nira spread her wings and caught the solar wind, her body adapting instantly to the vacuum of space. She soared between the two ships, building speed, her scales absorbing radiation and converting it to energy. Then she turned and flew straight at the collective ship. Owen felt her intention a second before she acted. Fire erupted from her mouth, not the chemical flame of Earth legends, but plasma hot enough to melt hull plating. The collective ship's sensors went dark as Nira's flames scorched their arrays. Santos used the distraction to punch the shuttle's engines to maximum. They shot forward, racing toward the colony border while the collective ship spun blind and helpless behind them. Nira flew alongside the shuttle, keeping pace easily. Through their bond, Owen felt her joy at flying, at protecting him the way he had protected her. She was growing stronger by the minute, her body adapting to space like humans adapted to air. They crossed into outer colony territory 30 minutes later. The collective ship, its sensors still damaged, broke off pursuit at the border. Owen collapsed against the wall, shaking with relief and adrenaline. Nira landed in the cargo bay, her wings folding neatly against her sides. She had grown again, now large enough that her head reached Owen's chest when she stood on all four legs. She pressed against him, and Owen wrapped his arms around her neck, feeling her heartbeat sync with his own. "Welcome to the frontier," Santos said, watching them with something like wonder. "Word of advice, though. That dragon of yours just made a lot of powerful people very angry. You're going to need somewhere safe to hide." Owen looked at Nira, at the creature who had just fought for him without hesitation. "Then we'll find somewhere no one can reach us. Somewhere we can both be free." Nira chirped in agreement, and Owen felt her trust wrap around his heart like armor. 5 years passed in the frontier systems. Nira was now massive, large enough to carry Owen and Lynn across continents on her back, her wings spanning wider than most cargo ships. They had found haven, a forgotten world on the edge of mapped space, where the few colonists asked no questions and kept to themselves. Owen built a home in the mountains, where Nira could fly without being seen by passing ships. Lynn set up a small research station, studying the bond between human and dragon while trying to understand how Nira had survived when her entire species had been wiped out. Life had settled into something like peace. Until the crash. Owen was repairing the roof when he heard the explosion. A ship, ancient and damaged, screamed across the sky, trailing fire before slamming into the valley below. He climbed onto Nira's back without thinking, and she launched into the air, racing toward the crash site. The ship had embedded itself in the ground, hull cracked and leaking fuel. No fire yet, but that would change soon. Owen slid off Nira's back and ran to the wreckage, searching for survivors. The ship was old, really old, with markings he didn't recognize. Inside, the pilot was already dead, but the cargo hold contained something else. Data cores, hundreds of them, stacked in preservation chambers. Owen grabbed what he could carry before the fuel ignited. Nira snatched him up in her claws as the ship exploded, carrying him to safety while debris rained down around them. Back at the research station, Lynn worked on the data cores through the night. Her hands shook as she read the files, her face growing pale in the blue light of the computer screens. "Owen, you need to see this," she said at dawn. "This ship belonged to the Drakenar. These are their records, their history, everything the collective tried to erase." Owen sat beside her while she played the files. Holographic images filled the room, showing creatures like Nira, but different, older, wearing what looked like ceremonial armor. They spoke in a language Owen didn't understand, but the translation software filled in the gaps. The Drakenar had been explorers and teachers, traveling between worlds to share knowledge and form bonds with other species. They believed that connection between different beings made everyone stronger, that the diversity of the galaxy was its greatest treasure. Then the collective came, offering the Drakenar a place in their empire. The collective controlled most of the known galaxy through military might and economic pressure. They wanted the Drakenar as weapons, creatures that could bond with soldiers and make them more effective in combat. The Drakenar refused. They would not turn their gift for connection into a tool for war. The collective gave them 1 year to reconsider. When the Drakenar still refused, the genocide began. Owen watched recordings of the war, if it could even be called that. The collective used weapons designed specifically to kill Drakenar, poisons that targeted their unique biology, bombs that disrupted the bonds they formed with other beings. The Drakenar fought back, but they were a peaceful species facing an enemy that had perfected the art of destruction. To eye in the final recordings, the last Drakenar gathered their remaining eggs and scattered them across the galaxy, hiding them in places the collective would never think to look. In debris fields and asteroid belts, in forgotten stations and abandoned colonies. They gave their children a chance to survive, even though they knew they would not live to see them hatch. "They hid Nira's egg 300 years ago," Lynn said quietly. All this time, she was waiting for someone to find her. Owen looked out the window to where Nira was hunting in the valley below, her scales catching the morning light. The collective is still out there. If they find out she exists, they'll come for her. "There's more," Lynn said. She pulled up a star map covered in markers. The data cores contain coordinates, locations where other eggs might be hidden. Owen, Nira might not be alone. The weight of that knowledge settled over Owen like a physical thing. Somewhere out in the galaxy, more eggs were waiting. More creatures like Nira, preserved in time, hoping for rescue. And if Owen and Lynn could find them, so could the collective. Owen spent the next week studying the coordinates, trying to decide what to do. Nira sensed his conflict through their bond, his desire to protect her warring with his need to save the others. She had grown more intelligent over the years, their bond allowing them to share complex thoughts and emotions. On the 7th day, Nira landed beside him while he was staring at the star map. She pressed her massive head against his chest, and suddenly he heard her voice in his mind, clear as spoken words. "We find them," Nira said, her mental voice carrying warmth and determination. "We protect them like you protected me. That is what family does." Owen wrapped his arms around her neck, feeling tears on his face. "It will be dangerous. The collective will fight us. Then we fight back." Nira's presence in his mind was absolute certainty. "I'm not a weapon, but I will protect what matters. You taught me that." Lynn came running from the research station, her tablet in hand. "Owen, we have a problem. I've been monitoring collective communications. Commander Ralt survived the encounter 5 years ago. He's been tracking us this entire time, waiting for us to make a mistake." Owen looked at the star map, at the coordinates marking hidden eggs across the galaxy. "We just did. If he's monitoring our communications, he knows about the data cores. He knows about the other eggs," Lynn confirmed, "and he's already moving to destroy them before we can reach them." Nira growled, a sound that shook the ground beneath their feet. Through their bond, Owen felt her fury at the threat to her unhatched siblings. He felt her resolve, her willingness to fight an entire empire if that's what it took. Owen made his choice. We leave tonight. We find those eggs before Ralt does, and we make sure the Drakenar have a future. The collective has thousands of ships, Lynn said. We have one dragon. Owen looked at Nira, at the intelligence and courage in her eyes. Then we'll find allies. People who believe that protecting life matters more than following orders. Nira spread her wings, ready to fly, ready to fight, ready to save her people from extinction. The hunt had begun. The coordinates led to a frozen moon orbiting a dying star. Deep beneath the ice, scanners detected the energy signature of preserved life. Owen stood on Nira's back as she descended through the thin atmosphere, her scales protecting them both from the brutal cold. Below, a structure emerged from the ice, ancient and half-buried by centuries of frozen accumulation. 7 distinct energy readings pulsed from within, weak but steady. 7 eggs. 7 chances to bring the Drakenar back from extinction. They landed near the entrance, where ice had cracked and reformed around what looked like a deliberate doorway. Owen climbed down while Nira used her plasma breath to melt a path inside. The heat from her flames made the frozen air shimmer and crack. Lynn had stayed behind on Haven, monitoring communications and coordinating with the few allies they had managed to gather over the past months. Her voice crackled through Owen's radio. Owen, I'm picking up multiple ships entering the system. Collective signatures. How long do we have? Owen asked, already moving deeper into the structure. 20 minutes, maybe less. And there's something else. Pirates. 3 ships, heavily armed. They must have intercepted the same data we did. Owen cursed under his breath. Through the bond, Nira shared his frustration and rising fear. They had known this would not be easy, but facing both the collective and pirates at the same time was beyond anything they had planned for. The chamber opened up before them, walls made of the same strange metal as the crashed ship Owen had found on Haven. In the center, 7 eggs rested in stasis pods, their surfaces covered in frost but their cores still warm with life. Owen's hands shook as he approached them. Nira, can you sense them? Nira moved closer to the eggs, her massive head lowering until her nose almost touched the nearest pod. Through their bond, Owen felt her reach out with senses he did not possess. After a moment, she made a soft sound, almost a purr. They dream, Nira said into Owen's mind. They have been dreaming for 300 years, waiting for someone to wake them. Owen started deactivating the stasis pods, working as fast as his cold fingers allowed. The eggs were smaller than Nira's had been, which made them easier to move but no less fragile. He had brought specialized containers, designed by Lynn to maintain the eggs' temperature and protect them during transport. The first explosion rocked the structure before Owen had finished with the 3rd egg. He ran to the entrance and saw ships landing on the ice above them. Collective soldiers in powered armor, weapons ready. And on the other side of the valley, pirates setting up heavy guns. They're going to destroy everything, Owen said, his breath fogging in the freezing air. Nira's response came fast and fierce. She launched herself out of the structure and into the sky, drawing fire from both groups. Her scales deflected most of the weapons, but some shots got through, burning lines across her flanks. Owen felt her pain as if it were his own, felt her fury at being attacked while trying to protect the unborn. More ships arrived, but these were different. Small craft with mismatched hulls and jury-rigged weapons. Frontier colonists who had heard Owen's message, people who believed that the Drakenar deserved a chance to live. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they came anyway that a man named Kareem led them, a former collective soldier who had deserted when he learned what his government had done to the Drakenar. His voice came through the radio channel, calm despite the chaos. Owen, get those eggs out of there. We'll hold them off as long as we can. The fighting intensified. Nira dove between ships, her plasma breath melting hull plating and destroying weapon systems. The colonist ships formed a defensive line, firing everything they had at the collective forces. Some of the pirates, seeing the colonists fighting for something they believed in, switched sides and joined the defense. Owen worked frantically, loading eggs into containers. for secure when the second explosion hit, this one inside the structure. A collective strike team had breached the entrance, firing weapons designed to destroy organic material. Point 3 eggs shattered, their contents spilling onto the frozen floor. Owen screamed, feeling Nira's anguish mirror his own. 3 potential lives ended before they could begin. The young woman named Yuna ran into the chamber, her flight suit scorched from weapons fire. "I've got a ship ready. We need to go now." Owen grabbed the containers with the 4 surviving eggs. Yuna helped him carry them while collective soldiers poured into the structure behind them. They ran through corridors of ancient metal, explosions following their retreat. Nira met them at the exit, her body covered in burns and cuts. She had been fighting for 30 minutes straight, taking damage to protect the colonists who were protecting the eggs. Owen felt her exhaustion through the bond, felt her determination to keep fighting no matter the cost. "Get on," Nira said, lowering herself so Owen and Yuna could climb on her back with the egg containers. They launched into the sky while the structure exploded behind them. Collective ships pursued, but the colonist fighters blocked their path, sacrificing their own vessels to give Nira time to escape. Owen watched people die for eggs they had never seen, for creatures they would never meet, simply because they believed it was the right thing to do. Commander Ralt's ship appeared above them, larger and better armed than anything else in the system. His voice boomed over all radio channels. "This ends now. Surrender the eggs, or everyone dies." Kareem's ship, already damaged and leaking fuel, turned toward Ralt's vessel. "Owen, get those eggs somewhere safe. Make this mean something." Before Owen could respond, Kareem activated his ship's self-destruct and rammed directly into Ralt's command bridge. The explosion tore through both vessels, scattering debris across the frozen moon below. Yuna guided them to her ship, a small transport hidden in a crater. They loaded the eggs and jumped to hyperspace, leaving behind the battle, the dead, and the 3 eggs they could not save. Owen sat in the cargo hold, one hand on Nira's wounded side, the other resting on the containers, holding 4 Drakenar eggs. 4 lives saved at a cost he could barely comprehend. Through their bond, Nira shared his grief and his hope. "They will hatch," she promised, "and they will know that people died so they could live. That will mean something." Owen hoped she was right. 10 years after Owen first found Nira's egg, the galaxy had changed in ways no one could have predicted. 4 young dragons now lived among the frontier colonies, each bonded to humans who protected them. Nira remained the largest and oldest, a creature of terrible beauty whose scales had darkened to black shot through with stars. Her siblings, hatched from the eggs Owen and Yuna had saved, were growing fast. There was Kale, bonded to Yuna, who had stayed after the battle on the frozen moon. His scales were silver, and he could navigate hyperspace better than any computer. Then Sarah, deep green and bonded to a farmer named Ruth, who could sense life from incredible distances. And finally twins, Ryan and Tal, both copper-colored and bonded to a pair of engineers who had helped modify ships to carry dragons through space. Owen stood on the observation deck of Haven's new orbital station, watching the dragons practice flight maneuvers above the planet. What had started as a colony of refugees had grown into something more. People came from across the frontier, drawn by the dragons, by the promise of something worth protecting. Lynn joined him at the window, older now with gray in her hair, but still sharp-eyed and curious. The collective Senate is debating again. Some want to negotiate, others want to finish what they started 300 years ago. "What do you think they'll decide?" Owen asked. "War," Lynn said simply. "They're terrified. The dragons represent everything the collective cannot control. Freedom, individuality, bonds that transcend species and politics. That fear will push them to violence." Through the bond, Owen felt Nira's presence. She was miles away, but might as well have been standing beside him. Their connection had grown so strong over the years that distance barely mattered anymore. "There are more eggs," Nira said into his mind. "I can feel them calling." Dozens, scattered across the galaxy in places even the ancient data did not record. Owen had suspected this. Sometimes Nira would stop mid-flight, her head tilted like she was listening to something only she could hear. Where? Everywhere. Hidden in nebulas, buried in asteroid fields, frozen in comets. My ancestors were desperate. They hid eggs anywhere they thought might be safe. Nira's mental voice carried both hope and sorrow. If I can feel them, eventually the collective will find them too. That night, Owen called a meeting with all the dragon-bonded humans. They gathered in Haven's main hall, 5 people who had become something more than friends, something closer to family. Una had brought Kale's measurements, Ruth shared reports of Sarah's developing abilities, and the twins brought schematics for new ship designs. We cannot keep hiding, Owen said. The collective knows we're here. They know about the dragons. Every day we wait is another day they're searching for the remaining eggs. Ruth, a quiet woman who had spent most of her life farming before Sarah hatched, spoke up. You're talking about war. We have 5 dragons and maybe 1,000 people willing to fight. The collective has millions of soldiers. We don't need to fight them all, Eunice said. She pulled up a star map showing collective territory. We need to make them question whether this war is worth it. The collective maintains power through fear and control, but their own people are starting to ask questions. Why did the Drakenar die? What else has the government hidden from us? Propaganda and truth, one of the twin engineers said. We've been broadcasting the real history of the Drakenar genocide across every channel we can access. People are listening. Lynn added her research to the display. The dragons have a unique ability. Nira discovered it last month. They can project thoughts and emotions to any mind within range, not just their bonded partners. If the dragons could reach collective soldiers directly, show them the truth, some might refuse to fight. Owen felt Nira's agreement through the bond. She had been practicing this ability, reaching out to the minds of colonists and visitors, sharing emotions and simple concepts. The more she practiced, the stronger the ability became. The collective is sending a fleet, Owen said, sharing the intelligence Lynn had gathered. 30 warships commanded by Admiral Grant. They're heading for Haven with orders to destroy the colony and capture or kill the dragons. Silence filled the hall. 30 warships against their small defense force was not a battle. It was an execution. Then we do not fight them ship to ship, Eunice said. We fight them mind to mind. If the dragons can reach the crews, show them what really happened to the Drakenar. Some of them will hesitate. Some might even refuse orders. That has never been done on that scale, Lynn warned. We don't know if the dragons can project to thousands of minds at once. Through the bond, Owen felt Nira's response, and it was not fear or doubt. I can do it, she said. We all can. The collective wants to silence us because they fear what we represent. Let us show them they were right to be afraid. The other dragons, listening through their own bonds, agreed. Owen felt the weight of their collective determination, 5 ancient beings deciding to fight for their right to exist. Over the next week, Haven transformed. Every able person worked to prepare defenses, not because they thought they could win a conventional battle, but because they needed to buy time for the dragons to do what had never been done before. Ships were retrofitted, weapons positioned, evacuation plans made for those who could not fight. Nira spent hours each day practicing her telepathic abilities, reaching further and further until she could touch minds on the other side of the planet. The other dragons joined her, their combined power growing stronger as they learned to work together. Owen watched them from the ground, 5 dragons flying in formation above Haven, their scales catching the sunlight. They were beautiful and powerful and determined to survive. The collective was bringing war, but the dragons were bringing something the galaxy had forgotten. Truth had a power all its own, and the collective was about to learn that some things could not be killed with weapons. The fleet was coming. Haven was ready, and the galaxy was about to change forever. The collective fleet arrived at Haven with enough firepower to crack a planet. 30 warships arranged themselves in battle formation, weapons charged and ready to fire. Owen stood on Haven's surface with his hand on Nira's side, feeling her steady heartbeat through their bond. Above them, the other 4 dragons circled, waiting for the moment to act. Around the colony, 1,000 colonists held weapons they barely knew how to use, ready to die for something they believed in, Admiral Grant's face appeared on every screen across Haven, transmitted from his flagship. He was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes, someone who had probably seen too many wars. His voice carried the weight of authority and regret. People of Haven, you are harboring illegal biological weapons. Surrender the creatures known as Drakenar, and no one else needs to die today. Owen grabbed a communicator, his hands shaking. Admiral, the Drakenar are not weapons. They're people, sentient beings who were murdered because they refused to become what your government wanted them to be. I have my orders, Grant said. I'm giving you 1 hour to comply. After that, we will open fire. Nira's voice filled Owen's mind, calm despite everything. It is time. Let us show them the truth. The 5 dragons rose into the sky together, their wings catching the light as they climbed toward the collective fleet. Weapons tracked their movement, but no one fired yet. The crews were watching, curious about what 5 creatures could do against 30 warships. Then Nira spoke, not with her voice but with her mind, and every person in the fleet heard her. The telepathic broadcast was not words, but pure experience. Memories taken from the ancient data cores, from the last days of the Drakenar. The collective crews felt what it was like to be hunted across the galaxy for refusing to fight. They felt parents hiding eggs, knowing they would never see their children hatch. They felt the fear and grief and desperate hope of an entire species facing extinction. Nira showed them the lies their government had told. The Drakenar had not been monsters or threats. They had been teachers and explorers who believed connection was stronger than conquest. The collective had destroyed them not for being dangerous, but for being freed. On Admiral Grant's flagship, crew members stopped at their stations, tears streaming down their faces as the truth crashed through their defenses. On other ships, soldiers dropped their weapons, unable to reconcile what they were feeling with the orders they had been given. The other dragons joined Nira's broadcast, amplifying her message. Kale shared the joy of flying free through space. Sarah showed them the beauty of life in all its forms. The twins demonstrated the bonds they had formed with their human partners, connections built on choice and trust rather than force and fear. Admiral Grant stood on his bridge, feeling the telepathic broadcast like everyone else. Owen watched the screens as the Admiral's expression changed from stern duty to shock to something that looked like horror. Grant was seeing the truth his government had hidden, and Owen could see the exact moment when the Admiral made his choice. All ships, stand down, Grant ordered. Weapons offline. Now. Some ships complied immediately. Others hesitated. 3 ships, commanded by officers more loyal to the collective than to their own conscience, opened fire on the dragons. Nira twisted through the barrage, her scales deflecting most of the weapon's fire. What got through hurt, but she kept flying, kept broadcasting her truth to every mind that would listen. The other dragons scattered, drawing fire away from Haven below. Then something happened that Owen had not dared hope for. Admiral Grant's flagship turned its weapons on the 3 ships still attacking the dragons. Other ships in the fleet joined him, creating a protective barrier between the dragons and the loyalist vessels. This is Admiral Grant to all collective forces. I am ordering a ceasefire. These creatures have committed no crime except existing. I will not participate in genocide, and neither will anyone under my command. The 3 loyalist ships, outnumbered and outgunned, ceased fire. Their commanders demanded explanations, threatened court-martials and executions, but their crews had felt Nira's broadcast. Many refused to keep fighting. While the fleet sorted itself into those who would fight and those who would not, Nira shared one more thing with every mind listening. The locations of the remaining eggs, hidden across the galaxy. She showed them where their siblings slept, waiting to be found. And she asked a simple question. Will you destroy us, or will you help us live? Owen held his breath, watching as the collective fleet faced a choice that would define the future of the galaxy. On a dozen ships, crews mutinied against commanders who still wanted to follow their original orders. On others, commanders who had been ready to fire weapons now stood down, unable to kill creatures they had just felt think and hope and dream. From across the collective territories, messages started flooding in. People who had heard the Dragon's broadcast, who had felt the truth of what happened 300 years ago. They were demanding answers from their government, demanding to know why they had been lied to for so long. The collective Senate went into emergency session. Some members called for immediate military action against the rebels. Others, feeling the weight of public opinion turning against them, began talking about negotiations and peace. It took 3 months for the old collective government to completely collapse. Member worlds withdrew their support, refusing to participate in what they now recognized as attempted genocide. The military fractured, with more than half the fleet defecting to protect the dragons rather than destroy them. That a new government formed, built on principles of cooperation rather than control. The Draconar were recognized as a protected sentient species, and humans who bonded with them were given rights and responsibilities to ensure the dragons could grow up safe and free. Owen stood on Haven 10 years later, now in his 50s, watching a sky filled with dragons. Nira rested beside him, her massive body warm against the cool evening air. Across the galaxy, dozens of eggs had hatched. Young dragons were being raised by humans and other species who chose to protect them, to teach them, to help them rebuild what had been lost. Through their bond, Nira shared a feeling of contentment. You saved me when I was just an egg. Together, we saved them all. Owen leaned against her side, feeling the steady rhythm of her breathing. A simple choice made in a cargo bay 15 years ago had changed the course of galactic history. One act of compassion had toppled an empire and restored an entire species. And somewhere out in the galaxy, more eggs were still waiting, more lives ready to begin, more chances for humans and dragons to prove that connection was stronger than fear, that protection mattered more than power, and that the smallest act of kindness could echo across the stars forever.